I did want to ask you, right now Republicans are trying to make the Biden's border crisis stick, like that's their latest thing, given the number of refugees and asylum seekers and migrants coming through the southern border, especially from Haiti. And we saw those awful images of, mounted CBP with whips or not whips, but they were being used like whips
Yeah.
on
Reins.
those
Reins. Yeah.
reins.
Yes.
Yeah, on which anyone making that distinguishment, like, honestly, I don't like, please leave. But it was awful. And, this administration, so you, on the one hand, you got the Republicans, on the other hand, you've got this administration saying that was awful. We don't, we're looking into it. We will investigate, etc. And yet they're continuing with deportations. They have accepted many thousands of Haitian migrants into the country, but they are still deporting people under that Title 42, right, which Trump enacted, allowing, under the pandemic, you can not accept asylum seekers. If you had to boil it down to a grade, maybe, or just what's your assessment of how this administration thus far, also 9 months in, has been handling the immigration situation and not crisis at the border, but what's going on at the border?
Yeah, Trump's presidency made it heinous, like his language, and it was vitriol that was part of how his immigration policy was rooted in that. But Obama's policies weren't great either, and now Biden is looking to do a little bit better. We need to repeal Title 42, something that I've called for and we called for. We need to increase the amount of immigrants we're bringing into our country. And we need more investment there for infrastructure so that we can accept more asylum seekers. Right now, all of the investment, the majority of the investment is going to C.B.P. Mm-hmm. And I visited the border. I went to Laredo, Texas to meet with C.B.P. officials and meet with volunteers with Catholic charities who are literally providing humanitarian aid. And, if I can contrast it for you, the humanitarian aid and the Catholic charity volunteers were doing their humanitarian work in like a shack, and CBP was doing its work in like a fortress, right? So you could see the clear contrast in resources. And when we visited the CBP facility, a few things stuck out, and one I still haven't figured out. Number one, there were like 20 officers touring the facility with us, and I didn't realize why there were so many officers. They took like 1 million pictures. I don't know why they did that either.
Okay, of you sort of there,
of me and my team.
Okay,
it was weird. I don't know what they're going to do with those pictures, but they took a zillion of them. And
they'll probably put it on the wall, like, sort of old Italian pizzerias. Like, hey, look, Representative Bowman loves eating here.
Do the right thing. Yeah, exactly. So that was one thing that stuck out. Another thing is they took us into this room to show us images of, these horrible, mean immigrants coming across the border and doing all these bad things, right? They were very, very intentional with their imagery. But when I asked them, a question, how many of the immigrants that you engage with have actually committed a crime?
Yeah.
And they said less than 10%. So we're putting all these resources into CBP, and at least 90%, and advocates would tell you it's way more than that, at least 90% of the people they engage with are not criminals. The only crime is trying to seek asylum in our country. So that was the second thing that stood out. The third thing is, they have the area with all of these jail cells, and there were probably about 10 to 12 open jail cells with no one in it. And then there was one jail cell that had like 10 people in it. And I asked them, I'm like, why don't you separate these people into the other cells so they're not on top of each other, especially because you just told me you are not testing for COVID. So you're not testing for COVID and you're putting them in cells with each other. They may get COVID, and this is something that's actually killing people. And when I asked the question, it was almost like he didn't think about it. And it's like, we have this culture where if you could commit a crime, and most crimes are committed to survive. If you commit a crime, you're just treated like you're not human, like that. And not too long after that, I visited Rikers Island here in New York,
Mhm.
and there's a humanitarian crisis in Rikers Island, like
Yeah.
right now, and it's
Yeah.
for the people who are incarcerated and the people who work there. It is untenable. It is something needs
Yeah.
to happen like right now. It is bad, and it's a system of inhumanity,
Yeah.
which is everywhere, unfortunately.
No, and you've been a huge advocate of now I'm gonna blank on what it is, but tran-
What? I haven't been
trans
an advocate for anything.
you're an advocate for so many things. Um, restorative justice, there it is.
Yeah,
Brain
yeah,
worked. Um, yeah, I mean, it's like, yes, why are you, and especially on the border. I mean, Rikers Island, yeah. I mean, how many exposés have there been done? How many times, how many deaths, how many suicides to know that you need to just tear it all down? I mean, in my opinion. But I mean, on the border, it's like you cross the border, that in and of itself is supposedly a crime. And yeah, he didn't even think about it because, oh, these are just criminals in his mind. So why would you treat anyone with humanity? And if we already treat criminals inhumanely, well, there you go. Welcome to America.
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
and I was just going to say, we've seen images of C.B.P throwing out the water that Catholic Charities and other, humanitarian groups on the border are setting out for migrants who are, on the verge of death, really. What's going on, Frantifa? If you haven't already, subscribe to this channel right now. Hit that button. And also, you can become a patron and support the show every single week. Get access to bonus episodes and exclusive merchandise. Patreon.com/Bitchuation Room. Do it.